we're going to talk about bulbs now, and already by mid-March we're seeing a lot of bulbs coming up in the ground. My daffodils are already up several inches with some buds in that already on. The tulips are poking through. Crocuses and snowdrops will soon be out. And so once they're done their bloom and that, it's another great time to be fertilizing. And again, I would suggest the bone meal, the Actisol bone meal that we have, high in phosphorus, so it's going to feed the root system and also feed for flowering the next season. The one thing with the spring bulbs that we need to consider is once they're done their bloom, and it's always best to remove that flower stalk once the flower is finished and leave the leaves there. I know we're always anxious to get the leaves cut and out of sight, but it is best to wait till the leaves do yellow up on the plant naturally. Or if you're Martha Stewart, you can braid them and put them in a little bun or something, but it is best to leave them. What happens with a bulb is a bulb contains everything that it needs inside in its own little storehouse. And so all the food of a bulb, when the bulb is dormant, is in the bulb itself. But when the plant grows and it sends out the flowers and the leaves, that food, that energy that's in the bulb then goes up higher into the plant. So once the leaves start coming out, all the food for the bulb is in the leaves. If you think of an onion that's in your cellar or in storage, if it starts to sprout, the actual onion becomes very soft and spongy. And that's because the food that was in that onion bulb is now up in the leaves. So it always has the same amount of food and energy, and just where is that energy at what time. So if you were to cut the leaves off as soon as the flower's finished and the leaves are still green, what happens is you're cutting off all that stored energy, and you're going to have a bulb that is soft and spongy, and it's not going to perform well or at all for you the next season. So why we wait till the leaves start to yellow is that's a sign that the food that's now out in the leaves in the spring are now being pushed down back into the bulb. And you want that to happen. You want that bulb to have all the food it needs, because it's at that time that they set next year's flower bud. So if you find you have bulbs that aren't blooming much anymore, that just aren't performing like they used to, that could be one reason, is that you're just not leaving the leaves there long enough. I know it's frustrating having them in the garden, especially daffodils that stay there longer, but you want to make sure that they're yellowing before you cut them off. And that's ensuring that your bulb is good and healthy for the next season. Even in the spring, we find that we'll still have those critters digging up the bulbs, especially the squirrels. Hopefully they didn't take all your bulbs in the fall and you still have them. But even in the spring, they'll come along, or rabbits will, and they'll either be snapping some of the flower heads off or stealing the bulbs at that time. There's a lot of deterrents out there we have one called Critter Ritter, which is it's granular but has the oil black pepper in it, that they don't like the taste of it when they put their paws on and wash their paws. The best thing to do is when you're planting the bulbs in the fall, the best protection that you can give at that time is to plant the bulbs, do a layer of soil on top of them, and then put a piece of chicken wire over top of the bulbs. The leaves and the stems will still come up through the chicken wire, but the squirrels can't dig down through it. So your best protection is done in the fall on them. You talk about different hot sprays you can mix up with cayenne pepper and all that to spray on the plants in the spring. It doesn't hurt the plants, but if it has too hot of spices in it, when the squirrel washes its paws and rubs its eyes, it can do some damage. So the best protection is using the chicken wire in the fall when you're putting the bulbs in the ground, or even if you haven't done that, once they're done their bloom and start to yellow down, and you still know where the bulbs are, you can always dig down and add that chicken wire in at that time as well, and that will just save the squirrels from planting the bulbs into your neighbor's yard. So once the bulb is finished, it's died back, you've cut it back, all the spring flowering bulbs, so we're talking about crocuses, hyacinths, daffodils, tulips, they can remain in the soil year after year. You don't need to be digging them up and storing them. It's only what we call our summer blooming bulbs, like your begonias, dahlias, gladiolas, that need to be taken out before. But all your hardy spring blooming bulbs, they remain in the ground where they are, and they're set to go for the next year. The bulbs that we see coming up out of the ground now are the ones that you plant in the fall. So they're winter hardy, they can remain in the ground all winter, and those are the ones that you'll be dealing with first. It's the ones that we plant in the spring that bloom in the summer that will need to be dug up in the fall. So your canna lilies, begonias, dahlias, all those ones that we have to be planting every year that don't bloom into midsummer, those are the ones that you'll have to take out. But all the ones that we plant in the fall are hardy to stay in the ground year round. Why we usually refer to these bulbs as fall bulbs is because these types of bulbs, like the hyacinths, need to go through a cold dormant period. They won't bloom unless they do go through that, and so that's why they're left outside, but the ground insulates them enough that they don't totally freeze, but gives them that cool treatment so that they're able to bloom in every spring for you.